How on earth is it possible that an immigrant, Elon Musk, got fired from his first two companies, had three rockets explode, and went bankrupt nearly twice, still built one of the most valuable companies in the world with zero advertising budget? He has hundreds of millions of followers and hundreds of billions of dollars. And in this episode of the Conscious Creators Podcast, we're going to be diving into Elon Musk, some of the strategies, marketing techniques, and principles that he used to be able to succeed. And this is not common advice or information that you see often marketers say in general, because I believe Elon Musk is taking tactics out of Donald Trump's book. And for example, most companies spend billions of dollars on ads. The larger you become as a company or a founder, you end up spending billions, hundreds of millions of dollars on ads. And when you look at Donald Trump's strategy or Kanye West's strategy, the ability for you to tell a story or for you to become a character in an archetype within the story of the future of America, the future of humanity, right? When you insert yourself in this storyline that's playing out in the minds of the masses, and you can become a leader, a figure that they look to for music, and you can almost tap into some of the primal parts of a certain subset of the population's psyche, you can grow, right? So, for example, GM spends nearly $5 billion a year on ads when Tesla barely spent any money on ads because Elon Musk himself is the walking ad. And most Americans say that they view Elon Musk negatively. But the point is that being the most hated man in America is an asset because you're still talked about. And it takes a very, very special person to be able to understand that. So we're going to dive into this on this episode. This is episode 4 of the Conscious Creators Podcast. We're going to see how far we can go and what type of community we can build with 100 podcasts. And my name is Toby. I go by Oga99. I'm a content creator, content specialist as well. And this podcast is sponsored by myself truly, yours truly. And I have an offer called the Viral CEO, where I help founders, CEOs, and premium brands scale with content, organic content strategies, and everything organic content related. So let's get into it. So one of the things that you need to understand about Elon Musk, and building an elite brand is all about the origin story. If you really look at celebrities and founders or people who are talked about being an industry plant in music, oftentimes they talk about their origin story. The most important thing to blowing up as a founder, an artist, CEO, whatever, is your story. Most people want to know your story. I remember one time I met a guy named Daniel Caesar when I was traveling out in Mexico, and we talked for a bit, and he basically just kept asking me, like, what's your story? What's your story? What's your story? Because in order for people to properly follow you, they need to know your story. And if you look at people in my industry, for example, that do marketing, make money online offers, they're very good at articulating out their story. And my story is not that fucking good. I'm not even going to sit here and lie to you. Obviously, everyone has unique pain points that are relatable. But I started my first YouTube channel very quickly, and I saw success very quickly. I wasn't one of the people who was like, I was posting for years, and no, I saw success like within a couple months. And I made $70,000 plus profit from that channel within less than 8 months. And so on. I started to work with other clients, and there's still going to be a story that unfolds for that. But for context, I just built the skill of organic marketing and started to implement that for myself and other brands. But the most important part about what I'm trying to get across is that having a story that's relatable as a foundation to your brand is so important. Elon Musk created struggle as a form of connection with his audience. Elon Musk dropped out of school, and all of the stuff that he did in his early days of being bullied, and he was almost hunted down in school, and his father told him he never would amount to anything. So he has the perfect origin story to become a hero in this plot line so far, right? He has the perfect foundation to be viewed as a hero, especially when it comes to the companies that he builds and how they tie into the future of humanity, which I also believe is another component as well. And one of the reasons why I think Elon Musk's background matters so much is that he purposely tells this on podcasts and places that he goes with his biography, right? He says he's a late bloomer. He talks about, being bullied and et cetera, et cetera. And this adds to his personal brand. And this origin story isn't really just your background. It's actually one of the first pieces of marketing, because people don't really connect with success. People don't connect with a perfectly polished story. And if you're a high-level entrepreneur, you're going to have issues with this. If you are a good performer and you perform all the time, most people don't want to connect with that. And honestly, I believe some of the greatest people in the world actually end up facing struggles, and they use some sort of mental alchemy to transform themselves into the person that they never even could have imagined. If you look at people like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, there was a point in time where these basketball players were absolutely terrible at their craft. They sucked. No one believed in them. No one listened to them. And Michael Jordan got cut from the team. Kobe Bryant couldn't score a point for a prolonged period of time. And these people were tall. They were athletic, and they couldn't see success. And that struggle not only, connected people like me, or thousands and millions of kids all over the world, but it also instantly made them be viewed as a hero within the story of that branding. So when Elon Musk talks about being bullied, or, talks about how his father made him feel like he would never accomplish anything, he automatically became an underdog. And everyone loves a classic underdog story. So if you think about this, if you're a brand or a founder, what is your struggle story? What did people say that you couldn't do? And what obstacles did you overcome along the way? And I think being able to articulate that out is extremely important, because it humanizes you to an extent, but also still, creates that story plot line. Now, another component that we're going to talk about when it comes to Elon Musk is the marketing principle of everything is a story. Everything is good PR, right? And Donald Trump does this very, very well. Everything that he does, negative or positive, is used to grow. Now, if you look at how Elon Musk started Zip2 in 1995 all the way to PayPal, he was removed as the CEO twice. They fired him as the CEO twice for both of his companies. But one of the most important things is that you can use that, and you can use negative events to shape your narrative. He's talked about it in interviews. He talks about it publicly, because those issues and those setbacks as a CEO, if you go bankrupt or if you fail, instead of letting that consume you, you can use that as material to grow. And a lot of people don't really talk about this. Sometimes having publicity and even just failing in public can still help you catapult yourself into the next thing, because it adds to the storyline of the next activity that you're going to do, right? So your failures aren't truly just failures, but they're story assets for the next thing that you pursue. And, sometimes you might think that you're embarrassed to post that failure story, but those might be the most relatable things to your audience. And oftentimes getting fired or failing isn't really something that most people will ignore, because most people can relate to that. And another part of this marketing storyline that we're going to talk about is oftentimes the narrative around a product, the narrative around who you are as a founder, matters more than the actual product itself. Your skill set is not that valuable. It's how people perceive your skill set or your product in the marketplace. And Elon Musk is extremely good at selling a vision and tying that vision to some higher level story. Because if you look at what SpaceX is and Tesla, a lot of these companies when they first started weren't really as effective. And he's using a very, very solid entrepreneurship technique, which is getting demand before you fully validate your product. And this is a chicken and egg issue in the startup space. So many founders will say, we need to perfect the product. Most founders that I've at least seen are actually more just focused on the customers, getting a group of customers, evolving with the customers, evolving with feedback, versus trying to go to market with this like scientifically new advanced thing that the world's never seen before. For the most part, the most successful founders that I've seen and talked to, they aren't trying to do that. It does work, but it's very rare. If you just want like a solid exit and to build a decent sized company, then for the most part, you just need to get the customers first. Now, there are exceptions. Very, very revolutionary companies can do this, but for the most part, it's just not the case. And in 2008, he was basically struggling with SpaceX, Tesla. He was weeks away from bankruptcy. He was going through a public divorce. He was borrowing money, and he had no working product. He had no proof of concept, no track record. But here's what he ultimately did have when he was struggling. He had a story. Elon Musk had a story of humanity becoming multiplanetary. He had a story of sustainable energy and the story of one man betting everything on a impossible dream. And what ends up happening when you have these stories that are so large and so big is that they transcend yourself. And there's other components of being charismatic, influential, persuasion, obviously still having to be relatively intelligent to be able to pull this off. But what you need to understand is that once you are on the brink of failure, your ability to continue to persevere and position yourself and to use every single ounce of effort inside of you is going to dictate whether or not you're going to fail or succeed. And it's not often about having a perfect track record, but it's about having a vision. And this is what makes Elon Musk and some of these world-class founders so special, is that they have a vision. And if you're a world-class founder, you could have a vision for how other people view your vision, the vision of your vision, and craft that out and create content and become almost a one of one in your space, right? A category of one in your space by posting YouTube and creating content. And that's exactly what I do for founders and CEOs, and what I'm even doing for myself with my face on my new account. And what you need to understand is that people don't want a perfect product. They simply want someone that is going to lead them to that perfect product. It doesn't need to be perfect now. It doesn't need to be the amazing world technology, whatever. Like if you look at Steve Jobs, Apple wasn't the best thing in the world when it came out. But if you looked at his vision and his ability to lead a team towards that, then it became the best thing in the world. And you need a compelling story about where you're going and the world that you want to build. For example, for me, I want to build one of the largest social media and marketing breakdown channels in the entire world. One of the largest media companies about marketing, about business and entrepreneurship in the world, and have a team of people who are killers and work with clients that are absolutely amazing and are actually purpose driven, right? And they want to change the world. They want to impact people in a positive way. And you have to ask yourself, what is the story that you are building when you run an offer or you launch a company? What is the story that you're building around that? And how does your personal brand and your story add to that? Because even if you fail, you could still use that for the next thing that you launch. Or if you succeed, you can use that for the next thing you launch. Because ultimately, people retain information through stories. And as someone that built a YouTube channel that was very successful and still creates content on TikTok, my story is trying to become one of the greatest in the world at what I do and truly leave a lasting impact in my industry and become one of one. Same exact thing, like the desire that I would want my clients and the people I work with to have when it comes to building an excellent brands that are ultimately going to change the world and be looked at for decades, if not centuries to come. Now, Elon Musk made a famous quote in 2008 saying that he remembered waking up on the Sunday before Christmas and thinking to himself, I never thought I was someone who would be capable of a nervous breakdown. I felt like this is the closest I've ever become. And he started to become very dark. And he didn't say this once, but he told this story multiple times, right? About how Elon Musk is, or how he's facing these human issues, right? And oftentimes talking about some of his issues and his drug use of ketamine or whatever, depression, philosophical things going on these podcasts. Like Elon Musk's podcast get like 9-10 million views. It's because people follow him. His company, he's like the epitome of a personal brand. And he could tweet something about fucking Dogecoin and it'll blow up and people will become millionaires. It's because he is the brand. He is the ad. He's a walking advertisement for everything that he does. And in order to get to that point, you're going to have to face some negative backlash. It's really just a part of the game. And when you look at how Tesla became a $1 trillion brand without running traditional advertising, then you really need to break down the power of having a brand like Elon Musk's. And in 2009, Elon Musk said that Tesla does not advertise or pay for any endorsements. Instead, he uses that money to make a great product. But that's half the story. His Twitter account is Tesla's marketing department. His interviews are the commercials, right? Elon Musk says he doesn't spend money on advertising, but he does spend money on advertising. It's through his personal brand. It's through the acquisition of X/Twitter. It's through the podcast appearances and the breakdowns and all of the publications and PR. He's a master at getting free press and organic reach at massive scale versus having a traditional CMO or an advertising agency. Obviously, he does spend the money on trying to improve the product, but a large percentage of his energy is going towards making sure that he is getting attention and staying top of mind for his customers. And another thing that I think is really, really important for founders is you need to create the news. Right? Elon Musk is amazing at creating news around his events, right? He has multiple different stunts that he would pull and ways that he brands himself, whether it's his personal Tesla Roadster or the idea of kind of being this Iron Man character. This persona is extremely powerful in the day and age that we're in now, because people are really looking for someone to follow. They're looking for a leader to lead them into the future of humanity, right? Anywhere there's fear, there will be a leader that pops up and wields that either in a positive or negative direction. And oftentimes people ignore how newsworthy things can become. I feel like Elon Musk and some of the greatest artists and marketers can take literally the most boring product ever and make it newsworthy, create a launch, create something that can truly get it replicating throughout the internet, and even why he believes memes are going to become the future. I was talking to someone that was also talking to Elon Musk, and they basically were saying that his view with, Twitter might eventually just be ownership of memes or culture. And I think that really does make sense. Being able to be compensated for your ability to propagate out information, factual information at least, is going to be a massive, massive advantage. Now, earned media compounds and paid media depletes. Elon Musk has a massive content machine. Within 30 days, he posted almost 4,000 times. He generated billions of views. I mean, he would get more views than Trump on a post. And this is where some of the controversy behind Elon Musk stems, is his political capabilities to influence, or his abilities to influence political outcomes. And his growth is actually insane, going from 70 million followers in 2022 to now over a couple 100 million followers. And something that most people ignore is when you spend money on ads, you pay to get impressions and then it's over. Money goes in and then out. But when you build a personal brand, when you build a organic content machine, that content compounds. Followers and influence compounds into something that can never be bought. It can truly never really be bought in the traditional sense of paid advertising. And in a sense, ads are renting attention, but personal branding is owning attention. You could shut off everything. You could shut off all of your marketing channels and then only have an email list and still have a list of, diehard people, ready to buy from you. Now, another component that we're going to talk about is the art of being polarizing. Elon Musk and so many people like Donald Trump rose to success because of rage baiting and the art of being polarizing. Now, I do believe technology and the economy is a large role into why some of these people rose to the limelight. But if you just analyze it from a psychological and marketing perspective, if nearly 50% of people view Elon Musk negatively and nearly 60% of him 60% of people just don't like him, then you have to ask yourself, based on some of these numbers, how the hell is he so popular and why the hell does he make so much money? Because he has a massive net worth and companies are worth so much, but people don't like him. And it's because of this paradox where when you try to please everyone, no one pays attention to you. But when you try and please a very specific portion of people or segment of the population, you can almost split people in half, and this half will hate you and they'll feel something, and the other half will feel good about you. But if you try and please everyone, no one's going to give a shit. And whether you talk about politics, free speech, government and society issues, just having a strong opinion like Elon Musk and Donald Trump forces people to either agree or disagree. And some of my most viral posts have been somewhat rage baiting, but it's either you go immediately into the comment section and you agree or disagree. And we are now seeing the rise of rage baiting for that reason, because it's a form of engagement baiting. And that's why these platforms love rage bait, because it just forces people down these echo chambers and these feedback loops that cause them to keep being stuck on the platform. So that's how they're able to leverage this to grow exponentially, right? Elon Musk, Kanye West, whatever, that's how they're able to stay relevant, is because they've mastered the art of rage baiting. And oftentimes, authenticity just beats polish. Elon Musk's communication style is very, very bizarre, because his style of communication beats most founders in the world, and it's completely contrary to what anyone would ever tell you in a traditional marketing thing. Taking controversial opinions, jokes, memes, hot takes. And this is probably why he was fired early on in his company. But because he's a non-traditional founder, he's a non-traditional CEO. And the result of having that type of persona that stands out is he becomes a purple cow, right? Elon Musk is the epitome of a purple cow founder and CEO. Everything he does immediately stands out, because it's so bizarre to see a founder or CEO tweet about some dumb shit, or to dance or just do weird stuff. And it automatically forces him to stay in the mind of the masses, of his customers. And that's why he doesn't have to spend money on marketing, is because he's already a polarizing enough figure. And then he has the organic side down in terms of his brand, his storytelling, and the origins that we were talking about earlier. And how, this really becomes a massive, exponentially growing machine. So the playbook for Elon Musk, or the playbook for founders to ultimately become a viral sensation in your industry, is to understand your origin story and your persona within the context of the market that you exist in. There are some more intellectual people. There are more extreme Alex Hormozy hustle bros. There are people that are a little bit more, for example, soft. You could be a female that comes into the industry and you're more soft and charming, but then also very strict. Understanding your persona and then understanding how that relates to your story is the first principle that you need to understand. Your story is a massive marketing asset that most people tend to underestimate when it comes to being a CEO or a founder. And the next thing is really just being the face, not just a founder. Being a face behind your company significantly increases the likelihood of success. The third lesson is create the news and don't buy ads. Be the creative engine behind the publicity and everyone paying attention to what you got going on, versus relying on advertising or PR, or really get something that's news headline worthy. Another thing is also sell vision before you have the proof. Oftentimes people make this mistake all the time in business or startup world, is you're building a website, you're doing all of this stuff, and you don't even have an idea if people actually want this yet. So it's more important to sell the vision of your offer and your product before you even have the product down yet. Now, lesson 5 is polarization beats indifference. It's better to be polarizing than it is for people to ignore you in the first place. That's why most people don't like Elon Musk and some of these, large creators, but they still pay attention to them. They're still trending. They're still relevant. And another thing is build own attention. Don't rent attention. Another lesson 7 is going to be vulnerability is a superpower and originality is a superpower. The more vulnerable you are about your story, your insights, and you're original about what you're truly experiencing, it kind of lets people's guard down subconsciously, and then they're able to trust you more. They're able to buy from you more. And if you're a founder or CEO that really wants to understand some of these lessons and tactically improve your branding and content strategies organically, and you want to go viral in 90 days guaranteed, Make sure you guys check out the link in the description to book a call with my offer, The Viral CEO, where you can get 1 million views in less than 90 days guaranteed. Peace out.